back, baby. Views, tube, how we doing? Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Today, we are in Chicago. The Get Back Gang versus Tyquan World, or Tyquan's World. Yeah? And without too much further ado, we're going to get straight into it. We're not even going to give you the furthermore. We ain't. Let's go.
At least 6 people shot. This all happening at 65th and King Drive in Parkway Gardens.
The Parkway Gardens. Parkway Gardens.
Parkway Gardens.
Now, Chicago is one of the most influential cities when it comes to drill music. The city founded the genre in the early 2010s. The genre mainly hailed from the Parkway Gardens housing complex, which also
O-Block
is referred to as O-Block. Early drill artists included Chief Keef, L.A. Capone, and Lil Reese, with these rappers rapping about the violent streets and deadly gang war that they had become used to around these rough neighborhoods within Chicago. However, in order to talk about the music scene, we have to
look how close that was. We get this a lot, but sometimes it's a little bit more spread out. Most of the time, look at that. Tyquan World just over there on their lonesome. Got King Drive in black, O Block, EBT, Ty M9 or STL Tucaville. Mad. Let's go.
used to around these rough neighborhoods within Chicago. However, in order to talk about the music scene, we have to talk about the dangerous rivalry within the area that has caused dozens of people to die, with one of the most feared gangs emerging, this being known as Get Back Gang, who would go on to kill multiple people within a few months, vowing to avenge their fallen friend. Now, the street gang based around Parkway Gardens would be known as Wick City. The gang is a set of black disciples, which is an older gang. The Wick City gang would rename to O-Block, following the deadly shooting of a member known as Odie Perry, who was gunned down outside of Parkway Gardens. O-Block has heavy beef with nearby STL EBT, with this beef getting deadly. However, I won't be discussing this beef, but instead
And they're literally right on each other's doorsteps. Mad.
the beef that Get Back Gang had with another gang known as Tyquan World, with Get Back Gang being an offshoot set from the O-Block gang. This set being created after the death of a loved member of O-Block known as T-Roy, who was a well-known shooter and killer in Chicago.
Yeah, T-Roy. I was seeing some stuff about King Von, and his name come up quite a lot. So we're gonna be but it wasn't like I was already watching these things, but we are gonna get into a lot of them just so we can put ourselves straight and learn.
Now, Tyquan World is a street gang based around 61st and Eberhard, as well as 62nd and Vernon within Chicago. The Tyquan World gang is a set of gangster disciples, with this gang being allied
Black disciples, gangster disciples. Are they completely different? Are they aligned? Or my American people, my US gang? Let me know in the comments. Or even if you're from the UK or anywhere in the world and you know, let me know in the comments.
with STL EBT, this gang beefing O-Block and other black disciple gangs. The original members of Tyquan World would be a part of a different gang, this being known as Jaro City. However, the death of a loved Jaro City member would result in members of Jaro City creating the gang.
Jesus Christ, look how young he looks. Recurring themes all around the world. Look how young he looks, man. What people shot him. But then maybe he's on badness. We just don't know.
Tyquan World, which became more prominent within the streets of Chicago. On the 24th of June 2012, a member affiliated with Jaro City, known as Tyquan Tyler, would be at a
Affiliated. He looks how old? Oh my God.
party with other Jaro City members being in attendance. A fight would occur at the party. This involved 2 Jaro City members known as Nate and Lil Wayne. The 2 members would leave the fight and walk down an alleyway. The members would spot Tyquan, who was standing with friends. Nate would end up shooting toward Tyquan, who would be hit in the chest. Tyquan would collapse onto the sidewalk and would be pronounced dead moments later. With a murder
13-year-old boy. That is ridiculous. He literally looked like he could be even younger than that. We've had a fight with probably people that's more or less older. Well, definitely older. Closer to your ages or not. You've come out and seen this little boy and thought, yeah, I see him standing with them lot. I'm going to shoot him. Even if you did. Do you know what I'm saying? Going to shoot a 13-year-old. Was he keeping up with badness? Was he just trying to hang around with the older boys? Crazy.
Investigation being launched, both Nate and Lil Wayne would be arrested in connection to the murder. Nate would also be snitched on by Lil Wayne in this case. However, in the end, Nate would be sentenced to life in prison, receiving 55 years, with his...
And in America, you know they don't play. Ain't like over here. Oh, you got life, you have to serve a minimum of 15 years or some bollocks. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, you're probably going to be under the jail. You know what I'm saying? In America.
His release date being sometime in 2068, whilst Lil Wayne only received 7 years. Rest in peace, Tyquan. Following the death of Tyquan, members of...
Snitched and still got like best part of a decade. I don't know how it works in the US. Do you get time for good behavior? Let me know down below.
Jaro City would create another set, this being referred to as Tyquan World, or TW. Now, this gang continued their previous beef and affiliation. The Tyquan World gang was affiliated with Jaro City, STL, EBT, and Marcus Way, with the Tyquan World gang beefing O Block, 600, and Front Street. However, it would be around 2017 that Tyquan World and an offshoot set from O Block would begin to have a heavy beef, this being Get Back Gang, which similarly to Tyquan World, was formed following the death of a loved member of O Block known as T-Roy, who allegedly, according to the internet, had around 8 or 9 bodies within the streets, before then going...
Yeah, that's what I saw, like, yeah. This T-Roy weren't nothing to play with. The same as Von.
Going on to lose his life, resulting in multiple members of O Block vowing to kill any rival that disrespected T-Roy, or had something to do with his death. This led to a murderous rampage that swept through the streets of Chicago. On the 14th of February 2017, T-Roy, who was a prominent member of O Block, and was in fact...
He don't even look too old himself. He don't look as young as the other boy. 13-year-old, but you know what I mean?
King Von's best friend. Anyways, T-Roy and an unknown friend would walk into a convenience store on East 71st Street. Upon entering the store, a member of Tyquan World known as TB and a member associated with Tyquan World and STL known as CGR or Can't Get Right would shortly follow T-Roy into the shop. TB from Tyquan World would slowly approach T-Roy. He would then point his handgun and shoot T-Roy in the chest. T-Roy would drop to the floor and would begin to scramble around, with the two killers fleeing shortly after the shooting. T-Roy would be rushed to hospital following the shooting, but would sadly be pronounced dead moments later. King Von would receive this news in jail, with King Von showing love to T-Roy in songs in the years following his death.
I'm T-Roy, got shot. Look, this is the thing, y'all don't know T-Roy. Y'all gotta leave out history of T-Roy, y'all don't know. Y'all don't know T-Roy like I know T-Roy, you know what I'm saying? So when I hear he gets shot on, the fuck he don't want to talk me like don't be lacking, don't be, you know? He was telling me.
It would be days following the death of T-Roy that members from 600 and O Block would create a set in his memory, this gang being referred to as Get Back Gang, which was made...
That's why I said don't be lacking, because you live by the gun, you die by it. And he was lacking. You know, what happened? Was he with someone? Did he walk into the shop up by himself? It didn't look like it. Whoever walked up to him looked like they was on their own, unless the other person was following up behind. 2017 O Block lost a huge member, James T-Roy Johnson, who was shot and killed by Tyquan World in February, which caused O Block and 600 to form Get Back Gang to avenge T-Roy and kill the ones responsible.
In order to kill everyone that was involved in his murder, with this gang being responsible for over 8 murders in the months following T-Roy's death. One of the reasons that members vowed to avenge T-Roy so much was the fact that he was one of O Block's top shooters, with it being alleged that him and King Von would often catch and kill ops from nearby rival blocks like STL. However, I won't be discussing that beef within this video, but if you would like a video on that, let me know in the comments. It's also known that T-Roy had a little brother known as HK, or Headshot King, who would become one of the main members of Get Back Gang, as he wanted to avenge his fallen brother, with HK starting to get seriously involved in the street life around this time, catching 4 bodies in 4 months. And it would be around May 2017 that Get Back Gang members would get their first Get Back for T-Roy. Members of GBG would be on the lurk for ops. The members would actually catch a member of Jaro City known as Lil Ho, shooting him dead in the streets. And then only a week later, the same members would catch another rival member known as Jamo, who would then be shot dead, with a member of Get Back Gang and 600 known as McAdoo being arrested after he was found with the gun used in both murders. All of these Get Back killings within the streets of Chicago would prompt O Block members like E-Dog to taunt their ops on social media, with E-Dog posting on Twitter saying, "Summer 2K17, lot of Get Back Gang. Shit bout to be going on." It would also be around this time that
I went on Twitter and just, like, honestly, on the tracks like that. Oh my god! But when did this become popular, man? When did this become popular? To highlight everything then you're going on to Twitter to kind of pre-snitch on yourself. Like, what?
HK would begin to get active in the streets, and it would be on the 16th of June 2017 that HK would catch his first known body, with him even starting to be referred to as Headshot King. On the 16th of June 2017, an 18-year-old member of Tyquan World known as Poppy would be standing outside the 7000 block of South Sat Street. Poppy had actually become a target for Get Back Gang's deadly rampage, as he had actually made a song with TB, who was T-Roy's killer months earlier, with the members dissing O Block members heavily. Anyways, at around 3:10 p.m., a dark-colored vehicle would approach. This vehicle containing Get Back Gang members from 600 and O Block. A masked attacker would exit the vehicle shooting Poppy in the head, with this member allegedly being HK, who would start to go by Headshot King around this time. The attackers would flee following this murder, and paramedics would arrive shortly after. Poppy would be rushed to Stroger Hospital. However, he would be pronounced dead 3 hours later, with crime scene footage even emerging on the internet. However, this is way too graphic to show on YouTube. Rest in peace, Poppy. The death of Poppy would mark one of Get Back Gang's first bodies in Avenge of T-Roy. However, the members in this gang wouldn't stop at just Poppy, and it would be only 10 days later that 2 girls would be shot dead, with both of them being alleged affiliates of the gang MO.
Alleged affiliates, not even like real members, alleged, and females. Another recurring theme, guys. Do these guys get the evidence? They just get one little, and someone's gonna get it. I personally don't think that's right.
OB. On the 28th of June 2017, members of Get Back Gang would be lurking for ops. It's known that a member of GBG known as McAdoo was present, as he was one of Get Back Gang's top shooters. Anyways, the members would spot 2 alleged affiliates of MOB, which is a gang that has beef with O-Block, and is somewhat affiliated with Tyquan World and STL EBT. The members, Lil Scud and McAdoo, would spot 2 female affiliates of this gang known as Nana and White Girl, who would both be at a red light in an SUV. McAdoo and Lil Scud would jump out of their car and would run up to the 2 girls, with McAdoo firing 14 shots at the driver's seat, instantly killing Nana, and Lil Scud shooting 8 shots at the passenger seat, killing White Girl on the scene. The 2 Get Back Gang members would then get back into the car that they had arrived.
Now, if you know me by now, why have I paused this video? What is the matter with my Don's face? Huh? Now, at this point, you're going to need to probably like zoom in. He's looking like the thing from Fantastic Four. He's looking like Bebop and Rocksteady. Like, what on earth is going on? I'm definitely going to hell. This ain't funny. All of this stuff, it's not funny, but jeez Louise, bruv. Snap, crackle, and pop. It is dark, pitch black.
Arrived on the scene and would flee, with police launching a murder investigation shortly after the attack. Both McAdoo and Lil Scud would be arrested and charged for the murders, with McAdoo and Lil Scud being found guilty.
Ain't nothing little about that head, bro. Scud, maybe.
Lil Scud would be given 26 years, which was 2 13-year consecutive sentences. McAdoo was also being convicted, however was caught up in so many different murders that it's hard to find if he was sentenced or not. But what is known is that McAdoo would die in jail in 2023 after his deadly getbacks for T-Roy. Now, after the death of both Nana and White Girl, Get Back Gang members would seek retaliation on every
guys in his cell. Is that all like of natural causes?
block they had, and would regularly slide on rival territory looking for ops, with the members' main goal being to find the killers of T-Roy months prior, this being TB from Tyquan World and Can't Get Right from STL EBT. So it wouldn't come as a surprise that on the 17th of July 2017, members of Get Back Gang would slide onto STL EBT territory and shoot dead 2 rivals, with one of the members being shot in the head, this once again being courtesy of HK, or Headshot King, who by this point had made it his goal to avenge his fallen brother T-Roy by killing any rival members. It would be around July 2017 that a member associated with STL known as FBG Brick, who was actually FBG Duck's older brother, would begin to post.
Yeah, FBG Duck I've heard of. Like, I don't know if he does music or what. But I'm gonna be watching all of this stuff anyway to get learned up on what's going on. FBG Brick. Never heard of.
Up with TB from Tyquan World, who was the killer of T-Roy, with Chicago drill fans even starting to speculate that FBG Brick played a big part in the murder of T-Roy, being alleged that he had given the drop on T-Roy to TB and Can't Get Right, with Brick then following up and dissing T-Roy on Instagram lives after his death. However, all of this reckless behavior on social media would lead members of Get Back Gang to begin to keep an eye on FBG Brick, and on the 17th of July 2017, HK would strike once again, killing FBG Brick and his cousin Kobe Mack. July 17, 2017 started as any other day in Chicago. During the weekend prior to the 17th of July, which was a Monday, an FBG member known as Jermaine Robinson, or FBG Brick, would travel to Chicago from Las Vegas for his son's baby shower. FBG Brick would receive a call on the 17th of July that invited him and his cousin Kobe Mack to go and visit the gravesite of their fallen friend Tuka, who was a member of STL EBT that was killed in 2011. Once both Kobe Mack and FBG Brick would arrive, they would sit on a porch that was just up the street from the gravesite and would wait for other friends to attend. At around 2:50 p.m., a peculiar white SUV would drive down the street, and upon reaching the two men, a masked gunman would hop out of the car and would shoot Kobe Mack dead. FBG Brick would then begin to run down the side of the home, before then also being shot dead by the attacker. The shooter would then return to the SUV before making an escape, with both men dying on the scene only a few moments later.
Sound like a whole setup from the beginning. I might be just, yeah, I might be deep in it a bit too much, but it sounded like a whole setup.
The news that a double murder had taken place would quickly spread, with members like Mimo600, who previously had a Twitter back and forth with FBG Brick, would start to celebrate. Pictures and videos would also be released following the death of FBG Brick and Kobe Mack. These depicted Mama Duck and FBG Duck on the scene, crying upon the discovery that two members of their family had died. It would also be around 5 days after the double murder that E-Dog, who was a part of Get Back Gang, would tweet saying that it was going to be a cold-ass summer, alluding to the fact that Get Back Gang was going to avenge their fallen friends and wouldn't stop until they were dead. Police would be scrambling for any information on the double murder, as witnesses were too scared to say anything due to the gang presence. Chirac viewers would then be quick to come up with their own theories on who the gunman was, with it being an accepted idea that the killer of FBG Brick and Kobe Mack was in fact HK, or Headshot King, who had killed once again in order to avenge his brother and had seemingly gotten away with it. Now, the Get Back Gang members would continue to seek rivals, but we're still looking.
That's one thing, man. I'm not hearing about so many people getting caught over here. You know, like when Fredo's sitting, yeah, the British, yeah, the English police are some of the best in the world. They're sounding a whole lot better than the US right now. Sounds like there's not a lot of people getting caught. You've got 4 bodies, 5 bodies, 6 bodies. Like, what?
To kill one man, this being TB or Terry Barry from Tyquan World, as rivals, but we're still looking to kill one man, this being TB or Terry Barry from Tyquan World, as he was the killer of T-Roy. TB knew that Get Back Gang wanted to kill him, and it would be around the beginning of September 2017 that TB would release music onto YouTube. In one of these songs, TB would rap the following lyrics: "My killer kill killers, so don't send your top killer at me." This becoming eerie when you come to learn that TB would be shot dead only 20 days later. Throughout September 2017, TB would post frequently on Twitter. On the 22nd of September 2017, only 4 days before his death, TB would tweet, "Me out of character," meaning somebody gotta go. 2 days following this, TB would post a picture captioned, "So tired of this hating shit." 48 hours later, on the 26th of September 2017, TB would post his last tweet, where he wrote, "2 blocks away, I ain't ever see Boss Top." Boss Top being an O-Block member who is still in fact alive today. And it would only be hours after TB's last tweet that he would become victim to the streets, and HK allegedly catching his 4th body as a retaliation for his blood brother T-Roy, with video even emerging showing HK sliding and looking for TB in the days prior to his death, which just shows how much of a target TB had on his back, with TB appearing to ignore the warning signs. On the 26th of September 2017, HK from Get Back Gang would seemingly gain access to TB's location, with a post even being shared to Chicago Drill subreddit, showing that HK would text Lil D and would gain access to his whereabouts. And it would be around 12 p.m. on this Tuesday that members of Get Back Gang would travel from their block to the 7000 block of South Chapel Avenue, which was around a 10-minute drive. The members would spot TB, who would be standing with a member of Jaro City known as Side. HK would jump out of the car and would shoot Side. HK would then turn his his attention to TB, with it even being alleged that TB would smile at HK and would say, "You got me," before HK would empty an entire magazine into TB. TB.
So the first guy just got it. Sorry.
HK would then turn his attention to TB.
Hold on.
Was around a 10-minute drive. The members would spot TB, who would be standing with a member of Jaro City known as Side. HK
is a member. He's a definite member, not an affiliate. Woyoy. Headshot king, bro. He's getting on muck. He's just taking the other guy out. Obviously, if you're after this TB, you'd think he would have shot at him first, but this guy just got wigged, like, no problem.
Would jump out of the car and would shoot Side. HK would then turn his attention to TB, with it even being alleged that TB would smile at HK and would say, "You got me," before HK would empty an entire magazine into TB. TB would be pronounced dead on the scene, while Side would go on to make a recovery. This would be the fourth body linked to HK, who would go on to post on Twitter following the murder with a fellow Get Back gang member known as McAdoo, who was also allegedly present and was one of the killers. The two GBG members would post a picture together captioned "Doggies," and only days later McAdoo would post about a party, this supposedly being a celebration of the fact that TB had now been killed. TB would also start to be publicly referred to as T. Roy Slayer by his friends following his death, with the public now receiving full closure on who actually killed T. Roy. Boss Top would also retweet TB's last tweet years after the murder and would caption the post, "Damn lil folks, you begged for your shit." HK would be very feared in the Chicago streets around this time, coining the menacing name Headshot King, as he had allegedly killed around 4 people in a 4-month time period, with him often shooting his rivals in the head. However, what no one was expecting was that only 2 months after the death of TB, HK would fall victim to the streets, but not as a result of the gang rivalry. On the 24th of November,
Jeez, you see what I'm saying? You live by it, you die by it, and they're saying not a result of it. This is going to be interesting.
2017, both McAdoo and HK would be at a tower block within Parkway Gardens. The members would travel upstairs within the building. The two members would spot a man who was visiting O Block. This man would be wearing gold chains and other designer brands. Both HK and McAdoo would attempt to rob him, with the two intimidating him by showing a gun they both had on them at the time. The man would run into a room within the tower complex before shutting the door and screaming, "I don't gangbang." The man would then retrieve his gun that he had a license for and would then shoot HK twice. HK would be hit in his abdomen and thigh. McAdoo would then attempt to rush HK to safety, before then allegedly leaving HK for dead and fleeing himself. HK would be rushed to hospital, however would be pronounced dead only a few hours later, with the
Doggies. Because we killed together. All it takes is one man to let off shots back. You got caught, you weren't expecting it, and yeah, you didn't even leave him outside the hospital and then leave. That is mad. You see what I'm saying? Learn from this, people.
man that killed HK being arrested shortly after and being interviewed by police. The shooter would eventually be let free, this being due to self-defense, this just being another violent incident that did not need to happen. Following the death of HK or Headshot King, members of Get Back Gang would seemingly go quiet for a few months, with King Von later being released in December 2017 after beating a murder charge, with his co-defendant Big Mike being sentenced to 28 years as he was going to snitch on King Von before changing his mind. Around 2018, King Von would sign to Lil Durk's label OTF, or Only the Fam.
The snitch on Von, and that's what I'm trying to say. The 7 years don't look that bad when you're looking at like 55, or do you know what I'm saying? Consecutive sentences, bro. Consecutive life sentences. So mad.
Family, with King Von beginning to drop music around this time. An example of this would be Beat That Body, which gained loads of attention within the streets and featured THF Zoo, who also in fact beat a body. This song gained around 12 million views and shined a spotlight onto King Von, whose rap career would just be starting. STL EBT members would also be making a noise within the drill scene. An example of this would be Wooski, who would drop a remix to the popular Bobby Shmurda song Computers. This song would be extremely rude and would feature disses to dozens of dead rival members. Computers would actually gain around 37 million views. Some bars include HK got caught trying to pump fake and Foe got on his heels, which referenced the death of HK. He also raps about both TB and Poppy, who had both become a victim to Get Back Gang's deadly rampage, with him rapping, "And for TB and Poppy, bitch, we on a hunt, two niggas died the same month." However, it would appear that Get Back Gang members would still be seeking retaliation for T-Roy, and they would be looking for one person in particular, this being Can't Get Right, who was the other man present present with TB at the T-Roy murder and was actually Wooski's partner in crime. The GBG members would spend months looking for him, and in June 2018, they would finally find Can't Get Right. At around 9 p.m. on the 15th of June 2018, Can't Get Right would be waiting for food within EBT territory, which is actually very close to GBG's block, being Parkway Gardens. An unknown car would seemingly drive past Can't Get Right. The car would come to a stop, and two shooters would exit the car. Can't Get Right would notice this. The shooters would shoot him once, with Can't Get Right then making an attempt to flee. However, he would be shot a few more times before then falling to the ground, with it even being reported that the two shooters would stand over him and shoot him more times. The shooters would then also kill an innocent janitor, who was doing his job at the time of the murder, with this entire incident being caught on CCTV. Whilst it's unknown who actually killed Can't Get Right, many different theories fly around the internet, with some people claiming 051 Melly was the killer, although this is just a theory. Following the murder, a prominent member of Get Back Gang known as E-Dog would post a picture on Twitter with the caption, "Yo ass better get right or get left." As a result of the death of Can't Get Right, more incidents would begin to occur within the streets of Chicago, and it would be around October 2018 that a prominent member of STL EBT would nearly die after being shot in the head, with this being one of the most infamous incidents between the gangs. Around October 2018, Wooski, who was a prominent member of STL EBT, would be attending Dooski's funeral, with these two members actually having a song together titled Shootaz, which gained around 4.5 million views. Anyways, during the funeral, multiple cars containing Get Back Gang members would arrive. The members would exit the cars and would begin to shoot at anyone in attendance. Wooski would
Anyone in attendance. So it's not just a UK thing, it's like it's happening anywhere. They're just getting you. If you're hiding for months and months and months on end, then they're getting whoever they're getting just so they can get you before they don't see you again for another 6 months. As I always say, man, know your friends, know who you're standing next to. Sometimes it's hard, but imagine you're going to a funeral and the funeral gets shut up.
Would begin to shoot back, but would be hit in the head during the attack. It was also alleged that 051 Melly was present shooting at the GBG members. The GBG members would seemingly flee following the shooting, with Wooski being rushed to hospital. And in a very rare event, Wooski would actually go on to make a recovery, surviving the attack. However, he would be significantly impacted, with it being said that he has experienced cognitive impairment since the shooting. Following this shooting, members of O Block would go on to mock Wooski, with King Von referring to the incident in his extremely successful song Back Again, rapping, "At your funeral I might just slide. Rest in peace, Nick. Shoot up everybody that's outside. Bet Wooski feel this one. I bet Wooski's still twitching. He changed something different." This being a reference to how Wooski has been impacted following the shooting. After the death of Can't Get Right, it would appear that Get Back Gang's deadly rampage had come to an end, with the gang claiming 7 lives from February 2017 to June 2018, causing a violent feud between Tyquan World and Get Back Gang. It's also important to note that King Von and FBG Duck would both be killed in 2020, with King Von being killed by Lil Tim, who was close with NBA Youngboy, and FBG Duck being killed by O Block members. Now, if anything, the influence that Get Back Gang had on Chicago and other countries was huge, with gangs in the United Kingdom even claiming the name Get Back Gang. An example of this being 150, who I actually have a video on. In a recent King Von song, released just before his murder titled Back Again, they
We'll get to all of those as well. 150, 67, maybe some more on Von's story particular, or T Roy, or do you know what I'm saying? You know, we should have plenty of stuff to get through. But look at that, man. Look at that Get Back Gang, because mission accomplished. How many man dropped? Do you know what I mean? It's crazy when you think about it. Hardly no well, not even hardly no stabbings, just bootings.
would actually pay tribute to both HK and T-Roy, rapping, "Long live baby boy, T-Roy, can't forget heck." This was actually the song that the entirety of O Block sung following King Von's death during his memorial. If you have learned anything from this video, make sure it's to stay out of the streets, as this life only ever leads to jail or death. And when you're from a place like Parkway Gardens, it's very easy to see the gang life as the only life to live, with the young members that I spoke about often being born into these rough areas and thinking that it's normal to spin on ops. Rest in peace, everyone in this video. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe.
As he always says, rest in peace, innit? Even though they're killers themselves. Excuse me, but there you go, man. Another one bites the dust. Interesting. Chicago, O Block, places that we've all heard of. Well, lots of us have. I'm not exactly learned up though, but little bits here and there. Doing things like this is gonna learn us all up. Do you know what I'm saying? If you like that one, or if I misinterpreted anything, or you got any requests, leave it down below, and we'll be back again soon.